Good evening everyone. This is the part 2 of Gurgaon waste management. The crisis which is there in Gurgaon pertaining to waste management. This is the part 2 of the series. Part 1 has been already posted. I will share the link in this video. People can watch that particular video and then come on to this one. Here today I am highlighting that why one of a key element in solid waste management 2016 rule is source segregation. Now, if this particular policy is not getting executed in the city of Gurgaon, the waste problem can never ever be solved in this particular important commercial city. Source segregation in fact has to be adopted by the entire country, if not today or in next 5 years or 10 years or 100 years or 500 years. Source segregation is the single important policy which has to be executed by very strong governmental intent if the country intends to completely solve its waste management crisis. Now in Gurgaon, I'll do a small recapitulation of the part 1 video. I highlighted that in 2016 the government of India came up with a policy called Solid Waste Management 2016. In this video, I will share the link of the Gazette notification from the government of India pertaining to this particular law. You can go through it, it's there both in Hindi and English. There are a host of important policy guidelines, instruction, decisions pertaining to municipal solid waste, medical waste, that is the medical hospital waste, industrial waste, commercial waste, waste pertaining from coming out from from slaughterhouses, from eateries, restaurants, all the places from where these food, the entire food industry. Then you have the entire this industrial units, where they have their own pollution norms. Everything has been detailed in the solid waste management 2016 rule. Now, as I am speaking for particular Gurgaon city, so I am trying to highlight that source segregation is the single most important point on which we have to focus. All the Gurgaon residents have to understand what is source segregation. There is no other alternative to source segregation, because once a waste is mixed, so you have to imagine now, if you are there in a house, just think you have certain organic matter like vegetable peels and a lot of other stuff, and then you have lot of other sort of waste material. And when you mix everything, first mix it up and then try to segregate it. First mix up and then try to segregate it. You will see that it is absolutely impossible to do it. Now, if it is impossible to do it at your home, inside your house, then imagine how is it possible for some agency of a municipal corporation, to segregate it on a city level. It is impossible. Now, this aspect I specified in the part 1 video. Out here I am trying to specify that why government is not executing this particular source segregation. This is one point which has been irritating myself and lot of other people in Gurgaon. What are the reasons behind it? See, one of the important big reason, as I just explained a small example which you should carry out in your house. Imagine that example happening on a city level, on a big city level, city like Gurgaon or a city like New Delhi. So you have to focus there, and then you take this particular policy of source segregation. So the government has this mindset that they actually fear that if they are going to execute this particular policy on ground, there is going to be a huge backlash coming from the society. Government people, politicians, bureaucracy, administration think that people at large in Gurgaon will not segregate their waste, that they will not hand over organic matter separately, then they the sanitary waste separately, then they have to separate, their plastic, single-use plastic, hard plastic, metals, cloth, all the other stuff, which you generate in your household. Government thinks that public at large, almost all the residents in Gurgaon will never ever do source segregation. This is what they think. Now, if I speak of the society, currently in 2025, Gurgaon society is slightly matured. A certain sizable section of people who are, well qualified, they're working in big companies or multinational corporations, they're earning quite well, the economic condition is very good. They travel abroad, overseas, and they understand the waste management practices being carried out in other countries, and they want to see those changes in Gurgaon. And for that, they have to change their habits, and source segregation is one of them. So those are the people who will immediately change if the government is going to 100% execute the policy on a city level. But when we observe the behavior of the remaining part of the population, people who are the middle income group, people in the lower income group, people who are doing the small and medium businesses, if we observe their behavior, then we will realize that they do not align with the terms and conditions of source segregation. That every morning they have to get up, and while they're doing their household chores of they're preparing the food and other stuff, they have to ensure that the greens go in a separate basket and all the other waste generated in the house is not mixed with the green, and then they hand it over separately to the government agency. All this is a big cumbersome task for them, and they're not in a habit of doing it. Something like the milk packets which get delivered every day, mostly in plastic packets, and every day they are going to cut those plastic, pour the milk out, the pouches are there, and then they have to ensure that these plastic packets do not get mixed with their cucumber and the bananas or the apple peels. They have to segregate it. They don't want to do it, so they mix everything. It's very easier for them, and then they put all these things inside one particular polythene bag, and they hand it over to the person who collects the waste. This behavior is of around 70 to 75% of the Gurgaon population. Government and the administration observe this behavior. On basis on that, they decide not to execute source segregation on a city level, because if they are going to force them and going to penalize them and punish them for not following the norm, they fear a huge backlash is going to happen, and the politicians who are there in the government, they will be at a very big discomfort. They don't want that to happen. So from past 10 years, from a decade or more, they have been avoiding that Indian society or Gurgaon society can never ever source segregate their waste. Though this city per capita income is very high, per capita per person educational qualification levels are very high, people are we have high migrants in this particular city, and they are highly qualified because they are earning in lakhs and lakhs of rupees. But yet the government thinks and assume that we are not capable of segregating our waste, and we will continue with this habit of putting up mixed waste into a polythene bag, and that's how, and that particular waste is then dumped in Bandwari. That's a distant place where the waste mountain is there. So that's due to this particular strong reason, the government is not implementing source segregation policy in Gurgaon, though it is mentioned, as I told you, in the Solid Waste Management 2016 rule. A lot of other experts have different opinion, and I welcome them, that why source segregation is so tough and so difficult. I myself in my house, I tried doing it, and there was a lot of stiff resistance which I got. People were not agreeing to it. They were telling, no, Indians don't do like this. When I asked them, you're traveling to Europe and traveling to America, or even to places like Dubai and Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, They are following all these waste management policies. They are so segregating. You go to Japan. So why, if Asian countries are doing it, developing countries, then why India is lagging behind? That's the reason, the Prime Minister in 2016, started this entire thing of Swachh Bharat. But see, observe the condition of Swachh Bharat in overall country, not this Gurgaon. You will see the performance is not good. Exceptions are there, few cities, they are fine, I agree to that. Situation has improved. But overall on a country basis, it has deteriorated. Gurgaon city's waste management practice is absolutely on a pathetic level. It's disgusting. I don't have to, overstretch and over explain it. You all can, Gurgaon residents are absolutely well aware about it. So focus on this part, that why source segregation is such a tough thing for the entire society, and and even the Gurgaon administration is also a part of it. It's not that only we are a part of it. So think again and again on this part of source segregation. That source segregation is one of the single most important solution towards waste management. You have to absorb this particular point into your mind and then overthink. Please overthink on this matter, because the more you're going to overthink, then the government and the administration is going to take a strong note of it. When people from different areas of life in Gurgaon are going to complain about it, are going to be very vociferous about it, they're going to speak loud, express themselves on social media that why the government is not executing source segregation, then they will take a note. And this has to happen in a quantity. A very high percentage of Gurgaon people have to do it. Just bunch of few activists voicing their opinion is not going to transform the waste management situation in our city. And on the I'm just concluding on the behavior of the household. I will blame the society on a large part, that it's very tough to explain them, because during the past 10 years I also tried to explain to a lot of people that do source segregation, these are the benefits, this is how you can reduce the waste, you can reduce the pollution, is going to have a transformational impact on the city. We are going to have very high clean city, really world standard cities we'll have. You won't have open garbage anymore. You will have high quality compost which can be used by the people in the agriculture industry, in the farming industry, or even the gardens and the parks maintained by the government and the administration. But when I did this, and a lot of people even like me also tried doing it, we faced a very strong backlash from the society. The same backlash I spoke about, the government fears. We also faced a huge backlash. The people who are speaking English, they are working in big companies and corporations, and yet they don't want to talk on the subject of waste segregation or source segregation. They say, no, this is India, we cannot do it. That's a negative standard of the society at large. And then we get into the blame game to the government, that government is blamed for this. We don't go deep inside the behavior and the actions of the society. That's what I'm trying to highlight through this video, that in this solid waste management 2016, source segregation is one of the most important element. And if that is not getting executed in Gurgaon, then forget about high quality world standards for this city. Already this city is facing problems in sewerage, in drainage. You can see the condition which is happening in the monsoons, the potholes. I'm going to share my opinion, expert opinion on all those subjects. But right now I'm focusing on the waste management. Source segregation is the single most important tool through which the waste management crisis is going to get solved in this particular city. Now this message has to reach to the Chief Minister of the state, to the ministers present, whom we have elected from this particular, the member of parliament, member of the legislative assembly, and other big important politicians. They need to understand our concerns. and then we can hope that Bandwadi will not exist, and we won't have open garbage and the pathetic filth which is visible across the city of Gurgaon. So please focus on this particular part of source segregation. If need arise, I will again explain this part of source segregation in detail, that why society is so negative about this. Entire society, not just the society who speaks English or make millions of money. So that's all for this particular video. Hope you gained some insight and I'm able to solve some of your problems. Thanks for listening. Bye bye.